This video is going to be a very basic introduction on how to animate in Blender. We're going to be using armature and a simple mesh to make a worm dance. So to start, we need to create our mesh. So to do that, we're going to start a general file. So we're going to new file, general. Now here's our happy little cube. Now our happy little cube doesn't need moving, don't touch it, don't do anything. But we are going to modify it. So every time we change an object, we need to go to modeling mode. Now in modeling mode, there's a whole bunch of options, but the ones you need to pay attention to are up here on the top left. There's vertex select, edge select, and face select. So for what we're doing today, we're going to be using face select. So I click on face select. Then you can see my whole cube is now highlighted yellow. Since I'm only extruding from one side, I want to click on one side first. So I click here and I highlight the one side. If I press E, if I extrude while the whole thing is highlighted, then I'm going to extrude a whole cube. I don't want to do that. I want to only extrude from this side, and essentially I want to pull out another object or pull out like another cube. Okay, that's what extruding does. So in this case, you can use extrude over here, or you can press E. I like to press E, so I don't touch any buttons. Nothing's clicked, nothing's held down. I press E, and I move my mouse slightly, and then I left click to lock. And now I've pulled out a section of cube. Then I do it again. Again, not holding anything, not touching anything. I press E, slide my mouse out, and then left click to lock. And I do that 2 more times. E, slide, lock. E, slide, lock. Now I have my rectangle. I have my entire worm. And that's all I'm going to need. So we're done creating our mesh. So we're done with that object. So now we need to create the spine for the mesh. So to do that, we need to go back to layout because we're creating a whole new object. And I'm going to click and rotate around here. To rotate your screen, if you don't know, click and hold the middle mouse button and then drag it, and you can rotate your screen. If you hold shift while doing it, you can move up and down. So now I need to make my rigging, my bone, my armature. To do that, I go over to add armature. Now I have an add-on pack that gives me a bunch more options. But what you're going to see is just an armature. So for myself, I click single bone. Now I want to work with the bone outside of the object. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I find it's easier for me to visualize what I'm doing. So my bone, you can see if you just look tinily, there's a tiny little bit sticking out. So to move it, I go over here to the move tool. I click on the move tool, and I'm going to rotate my screen. You see this green arrow? I'm going to click and hold the green arrow and just pull my armature just outside of my object. Okay, and now I'm going to rotate it so that the pointy end is facing the far end of the rectangle. So I use a rotate tool. I click on my armature, and then I can rotate it using there. Okay, now I want my bone to be a little bit bigger because I kind of want it the same size as the cubes that I created. So I personally don't like clicking the scale tool. I find it doesn't work as well as just simply pressing S. So I'm going to press S and click on the object, press S, and I'm just going to move my mouse slightly and rescale my object. And then I'm just going to move it so it's right at the back of the cube. Okay. Now I'm going to modify this spine. So because I'm modifying the spine, I'm not just working on it as a whole. I'm going to be manipulating it. I need to go back to modeling. And now you can see the tip of my spine is highlighted. That means I can actually extrude more bones. So I press E, and I can extrude out another one. E, again, press E, and extrude, just like you did with the mesh. There we go. And now I've extruded a spine. There are ways to make it perfect. We don't need it perfect. We just need it kind of okay. And you know what? That spine looks kind of okay. So now I'm going to put it back inside of the mesh, inside the worm. To do that, I need to first be able to see inside. So I'm going to switch over my view from solid mode. So I see everything's outlined in gray. Press Z. And then after I press Z, I go to wireframe. And now I can see inside of everything. So I go back to layout, press Z, wireframe. And now I'm moving my entire spine inside of my object or my worm that I created. Okay? Now this part here is the tricky part. It's not really tricky, but you have to memorize the sequence. So I click on the mesh, hold shift, click on the rigging, and then Control P. So let's do this again. Click on the mesh, hold shift, click on the rigging, and you can see that the mesh is orange, the rigging is yellow. Hold Control, hit P with automatic weights. So we're going to go down and set parent 2 with armature deform with automatic weights. Boom. We are now done that stage, and we can actually now animate our worm. So how we do that is instead of object mode, we switch it to pose mode. And then we can click on the individual armature. I like to use the rotational button. So I press R twice. R. So if I press R once, I get the black arrows, which is a rotation. I press R twice, I get the green and red, which I find gives me a lot more lifelike movement. So there we go. Now you can manipulate your object using the armature. It's pretty cool. And you can actually select any individual bone, and you can actually move and rig your object. Now, for the recording part, here's the recording part. Down here, you're going to see this little thing. This is your timeline. Okay? There are two ways to do Work Blender. So first of all, I'm going to press record because we're going to be recording our movements. So the first way I'm going to show you is how you do it outside of real time. So example, I'm going to move my character slightly, move my timeline, and again, move my character here. Now you're going to see if I go play, Blender will fill in all the motion from that point to the other point. See it again, we'll go back. You see how it filled it in all those motions? I only had to make 2 plots. So you can do things outside of real time. So you can actually just move, manipulate an object, okay, and then go back. One of the tricks when you're doing keyframing like this is to move an object just a little bit way in the beginning and then move it again later, because that way you've made a keyframe. Okay, so I like to just start. So whenever I select a new bone, I make a slight movement just to lock it in, and then over here is when I'll do my major movement. And now I will bring it over there. Okay, so now Blender fills in all of the extra animations that I didn't need to do. But if that's not the way you want to do it, there's another way. You can actually do it in real time. So if I hit play and then I start manipulating my object, I'm actually recording my motions in real time. So now when it plays, you're going to see that all that motion I just did is recorded. And if I press Z and go back to solid, there we go. We've just made our very first animation. And for fun, if you want to get fancy, you can go back to layout, go to object mode, click on your mesh, go to the wrench. Don't apply the armature. Whatever you do, leave it alone. Don't touch it. But what we're going to do is go to subdivision surface, and we're going to subdivide. And then we're going to hit apply. And now our animation is our worm in it. And if you want to get really funky, you can do this. So check this out. Particles plus hair. I'm just going to shrink the hair down a little bit because I don't need the hair to be. And I can actually add more hair. And now this is going to be really cool. So I click Hair Dynamics. I'm going to cache, and I'm going to go bake. So Hair Dynamics, cache, bake. And then once this is done, then you're going to see super shaggy, crazy, hairy, awesome worm doing a dance. Press play. Woohoo! Super shaggy, hairy worm dance.